Well, ladies and gentlemen, President Trump has just scored another huge victory for the United States. And despite what you're seeing on the mainstream media, predominantly in the UK and Europe here, US media is a little bit different. This isn't this, what they are saying. Let's just say that, because I want you to think about it like this. For years now, Europe and the US taxpayers have been on the hook for huge sums of money over the conflict in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine. But actually what this has done now by bringing all the negotiations to the table, and I want to be clear because there's all these reports about this peace deal and how it's going to happen and all this other stuff. There isn't actually a peace deal in place. So I just want to be clear on that. And I'm going to go through some of the possible scenarios that I've run through today, put a few hours into this today. So I want to run through some of the possible scenarios here. But what I thought was interesting was they said it couldn't be done. They said that you couldn't bring President Putin of Russia to the negotiating table because he's they said all these things. He's a madman. He's a crazy man. And all this stuff. So they said it couldn't happen. And obviously that's somewhat propaganda. If he was a crazy madman, would he have been able to do the things that he has done? Russia's actually winning this war, as I think everybody has finally come to accept now. So this is all the things that have been going on. And who was writing the checks for all of this? It was the taxpayers, not the governments. Because remember, the government doesn't make money, they only take money. So this has been draining billions and billions for a long period of time now. So I want to tell you how what I think Trump has done is somewhat genius in some ways. It's very positive for you if you're an American taxpayer. It's extremely negative if you are a European taxpayer, because and also Ukrainian. Probably no Ukrainians watch this channel, but it's extremely negative if you look at what's happening here. So let's go through some of these notes here then. So what I thought was really interesting was how all of these the most powerful leaders in the world, you could say, just flew into Washington for this meeting with President Trump. And it was interesting because the way they were sort of describing it was that they weren't going to, they're not at his beck and call like a dog, some of the media. Who does he think he is? We're not his, when he whistles, we don't just come. And then, of course, we saw, let's just open this up. We saw this picture, which dominated all of the headlines. And as I always, said for a long time here, you always look at the pictures and you look at the images, and the old saying is a picture paints 1,000 words. When you look at this, who is the power player in this position? It's very, very clear, and you can read the body language of everyone here as well. I thought it was hilarious how this chap here, the German, tried to give Trump a lecture. I don't know if you've watched that. He tried to give him a lecture. Maloney here on the left was just rolling her. Actually, I think I grabbed a clip of this. Here it is. She's just rolling her eyes at him trying to give Trump a lecture and saying how he should do it. But, you look from the other side of the table here, and you can see who's in control with this situation, whether you like it or not. I know a lot of people don't like it, but that is the facts. He is the power player, and they did all fly in at a moment's notice. This wasn't, pre-planned weeks in advance. They flew within hours. They got on a plane and went to see him. So why am I saying that he's won so big, or the US has won so big then? Because if this goes through, you're looking at now peace in Europe without American soldiers on the ground. He said that. There's no boots on the ground, and the American taxpayer will not be footing the bill. They'll be off the hook, as it were, that the taxpayers will be off the hook for another endless war. And Europe is being forced to sort of step in on the defense and the reconstruction on it all. However, here's a twist to it with what I was talking about with BlackRock yesterday. Who is going to be doing the reconstruction and making a lot of money from it? It is yet again BlackRock, which is a American company, should we say, but it's more of a global company if you actually look into it properly. So Europe will step up. More taxpayer money will go on to defense, less from America. So it's a very powerful play for the US. So let's have a look at the timeline then. See what this looks like. So it's 5 days ago now on August the 15th. This was the Alaska summit, something they said would never happen and Putin would manipulate Trump and all this. That's not what I saw. Watching that summit, that isn't what I saw. I saw a sort of mutual respect between two leaders there. And you can see that Putin respects Trump. It was very, very clear, especially with some of his comments. So they had a positive meeting. They outlined some of the things, and then on the August the 18th, during the White House meeting, Trump hosted Zelensky and several European leaders. So they talked and they focused on security guarantees for Ukraine, loosely based on NATO support. However, this is not legally binding. You've got to understand that. Even if this actually all happens, it's only as good as the president's word. So if you get a new president in the future, another Joe Biden, well, it's as good as his word, shall we say. August the 19th and 20th then, so today, this was the NATO and European reactions that came in. So they've actually held emergency consultations. A lot of the defense chiefs are not happy about this deal being put together. And I'll tell you who's pushed back. The UK, Keir Starmer, UK Prime Minister, obviously has pushed back. Germany's Friedrich Merz, he's pushed back. France's Emmanuel Macron, of course these three have pushed back. That was almost guaranteed. They say that this is going to reward the Russian territorial gains, and they are not signing off on it. Well, it's not for them to sign off on it. Are they really going to stop their support? No, they're not. So they haven't really got any position to even say anything. They have no sway in this, really. Main points of the framework then. Number one was a security guarantee. This is the US and possibly European nations would provide Ukraine with a NATO-style protection, although this will sit outside of Article 5 because Ukraine will not be permitted to join NATO. That is the sort of arrangement. And another reason this is both positive for both Europe and the US, but very negative for Ukraine, is that they will become the buffer. So they will become the buffer area for what they say is containing Russian aggression. Next then is the territorial concessions. So what they're looking to do is actually cede some of these regions, which was obvious that it was going to happen anyway. There's three main reasons. Crimea is one of the main ones there. Demilitarized zones. They want to now start pulling back the heavy weapons. You're not going to see this just yet. I don't know if you've seen overnight, but it was one of the heaviest bombardments overnight. It's really intensifying there. Another thing Trump said is limited US air support, and he emphasized the word limited. So the US role will be very, very, very small in this. It will be a European-led defense pact under NATO is what they are aiming for. But remember, they've still got the Trump card. I didn't mean to say that, but yeah, they've still got the Trump card with Europe, because what are they holding? Is it $200 billion worth of Russian assets that were seized? So they're still holding this card over Russia at the moment. Will they give those assets back? Highly unlikely. I think what they're most likely to do is to give them to someone like BlackRock to continue the building work, the restructuring work in Ukraine. So there's still a lot of points of tension then. Number one is Ukraine's position. Really, they haven't got a position. Zelensky wants a ceasefire first, saying that any negotiations under fire only benefit Russia. He hasn't really got any weight in this, is what I'd say. Ukraine is losing massively. Russia is only strengthening. They're strengthening their position day by day. Russia, massive country, a lot more men turn 18 every day. Ukraine is a much smaller country. They just haven't got the manpower. And despite all the pushes from Macron, Starmer, and other leaders to put boots on the ground, European boots on the ground, it never actually happened. And that's why you didn't see it escalate. And I actually thought they would move to that. You probably heard me say that in a couple of videos. I thought they would move to that, those boots on the ground, and they really pushed for it. They were so close, Starmer and Macron, two people that you would never want watching your kids, let's just say that. Very dodgy guys. You can't trust them with anything, right? They really tried to push this forward. What about Russia's position then? They insisted that Ukraine must renounce NATO membership, applying for this membership, and accept permanent Russian control of certain territories. Whether you like it or not, I think that's probably the only position left here. I just don't see any other way out of this. Otherwise, you're going to see Russia. You see, when someone's winning in a war and they're not getting a massive amount of pushback, you can't really do much more to them economically with sanctions and things. They've already been hit really hard with it. What else is left? There isn't much. Boots on the ground didn't happen. The US getting involved could still happen, but unlikely. I think the only way that would happen is if President Trump felt that Putin had deceived him, wasted all of his time, and did something against him that he was very upset about. Maybe that would pull the US in, but apart from that, I just can't see it happening. And then we have the European position then. They fear that, which is kind of ridiculous, but they fear that Trump and Putin are really their friends. And this whole thing was planned all along for these deals and whatever else. I think that's a kind of ridiculous. It's typical of some of the European leaders to say this. But they're saying as well that the US is just abandoning Europe. Well, it's not necessarily that they're abandoning Europe, but you got to think from the position of the new US administration. What are they doing? They're putting America first. And the US was the heaviest contributor to NATO, both militarily and monetary. And the US just wasn't, in all this time, the European Union and European countries, just they weren't picking up the slack, even though they were warned over and over again. So he's basically done what he said he would do. He's pulled out now, America first, Europe, you're on your own, and it's forced them to take control of their own destiny in the future. So I think it's actually a positive thing, because if he didn't do that, they would have always just relied on the US rather than building up their own military. And again, I don't think any of this is positive when it comes to war, but what is better to have fairly equally sized militaries in strength, because then you look at it and you say, do I really want to have this massive war here? No one's going to win at the end of it. But when you have a massive powerhouse and you have weak other players, and we've seen this during World War II as well, we saw it during World War I, it incentivized certain leaders to take advantage of that. So where are we now? There is no Trump-Putin deal, as I keep hearing all these mainly YouTubers, let's just throw it out there, saying this new deal, this peace deal. There is no peace deal. It's just a proposal at this stage. It's a draft framework. So what is Trump's goal then? He wants to end the entanglement, really, with Ukraine. He wants to end the war and probably get a Nobel Peace Prize. I'm sure he wants one of those as well. But he wants to just shift the burden to Europe. Now, there's a couple of risks still. And I think that the risk is, you think about Russia and what's actually happened with them, with the sanctions. They are playing a long strategic game, I believe, with their allies, with China especially. And I think you've got to watch China also, because China's going to be watching what happens here. So if nothing happens and all the sanctions are lifted and Russia's allowed to sell their energy and they take these regions, I almost guarantee what you're going to see not long after that is China taking back what they believe is Taiwan, part of China. I think you almost guarantee to see it, because they'll say, what's the consequences? Some sanctions. Big deal. What, we can't sell our energy? Big deal. We'll use it domestically. We need it anyway. What they're going to do, sanction us? Well, they need our products in some regards. We're the factory of the world, although that's limited now. But I think that's another thing at play here. If they do that, I think China's going to start to say, ooh. So there's no repercussions here for some of this stuff. And then you look from Russia's perspective, then let's look at this one. Recognition of gains. This is territorial expansion, basically. It's a win here. NATO neutralization. By locking out Ukraine from NATO, again, this would be a win. Although, I wouldn't necessarily call it a win. This was always part of the deal. If you go right the way back, it was always part of the deal that Ukraine would never become a part of NATO. It's only recently that they started pushing for this. Really, with Ukraine, when I started looking through the options here, I couldn't find any good options. The only one, I guess, is the security guarantee via President Trump. But again, that is a word, it's a handshake. It's not legally binding. So that's really their only win. I can't see any other wins for Ukraine here. Maybe selling their energy, their resources. But apart from that, I can't really see much here. The concerns, though, for Europe would be an emboldened Russia for the future. Will they want to take their revenge on how they view all of the sanctions and everything against Russia, European weapons being used by Ukraine against Russia? Will they take some sort of retribution in the future, build up their military again? We don't know. I mean, who knows if that will happen? So what are the possible scenarios then if the deal goes through? The guarantees, the offensive halts, the front line freezes, they both pull back, and it's monitored by international forces. So it would save a lot of lives. You'd see an end to the war, which would be very, very positive, I believe. I'm sure you do as well. Drop a comment below. Also, feel free to subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. A couple of other things I was thinking through then. We've obviously got huge energy prices now. Our energy prices are absolutely enormous. So what would actually happen there? Well, a ceasefire could bring down energy prices. Will they ever start buying Russian energy again? I don't know. I wouldn't say at any time soon. You'd have to get new leaders in, which I think will happen anyway. We're seeing this shift now away from all the weird woke stuff and the sort of EU 5-member council that controls everything, shifting back towards a lot more conservative values in the world with leaders. And I think with these positive effects taking place, new leaders would say, hold on, why would I spend triple the amount on energy from this country here when I can get it from somewhere like Russia or via Russia, via some other countries, for a third of the price? Why will I not lower my energy prices for my citizens? So I think this could happen, but you're a long way out at the moment. Trade stability as well, Black Sea shipping routes, you'd see the insurance costs come down. You see a lot more opening up there. Reconstruction costs would be positive for the US and BlackRock, not positive for a lot of others. And there's a couple of other things I wanted to talk about. Here we go. I was reading some of Zelensky's comments as to how he feels about all of this, and obviously it's not positive at all. But did you see how he turned up in a suit this time after Trump said he needs to, turn up in a suit, don't dress scruffy for the meeting? It was night and day. You could see that quite clearly when he turned up and how respectful. I think he thanked President Trump 3 times in one single sentence. It was like, okay, someone's obviously trained him, a media coach this time, on how to play this. Didn't play it well last time, I'm sure we all agree. It's actually been revealed that 70% of Ukrainians actually support a peace deal as well. So I think, basically, sooner or later, this is going to end, and I think it's going to end in one way. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Appreciate you all the subscribers. Take care. God bless. I'll see you on the next one.